All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into the Quran,
Okay?
specifically the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah,
Sounds good.
which is,
It's a big one.
yeah, it's the second and longest chapter in the Quran.
Right.
But these verses, they're pretty important. They're like a blueprint,
Yes, they are.
a guide for not just like Islamic practice, but also
The essence of faith.
the essence of faith. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this Surah Al-Baqarah, it was revealed in Medina.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting because it speaks to everyone.
It does.
To believers and non-believers.
Yeah, it's a mix of guidance laws
Okay.
and just these incredible spiritual insights that have resonated.
Yeah. For centuries, I've heard that a lot of Muslims memorize these opening verses.
They do.
Is there like a reason why those are so significant?
Absolutely. These verses are recited often for blessings,
Okay.
and they're considered foundational for understanding the deeper messages of the Quran.
So it's like getting a sneak peek of the roadmap before you start the journey.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get started on that journey.
Okay.
Verse 1 starts with these letters, Alif-Lam-Mim,
Right.
3 Arabic letters, and it just seems like a secret code.
It does.
Right? What's the meaning behind it?
So some scholars see it as a divine mystery,
Okay.
something beyond human understanding,
Okay.
and it's a reminder for us to approach the Quran
Mm-hmm.
with humility, acknowledging that some things
Yeah.
remain beyond our grasp.
So just accepting there are some things we just won't ever fully comprehend.
Right.
But doesn't that make it hard to, like,
Well,
get into it because it's so
Sure.
cryptic?
I understand that point.
Yeah.
Another interpretation sees it as a challenge,
Yeah.
highlighting the Quran's inimitable perfection. It's like saying you can try and replicate this with the same letters,
right.
but you'll never cap protections.
Yeah. And I think that might appeal more to some people
Sure.
who are looking for a sign
You're right.
or proof.
Proof.
But regardless of your view, it seems like the key here is to be open-minded.
Exactly. Curiosity and sincerity are vital when approaching any sacred text.
Okay, so let's move on to verse 2.
Okay.
It describes the Quran as guidance for the God-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
But that term, God-conscious, that's not just about, like,
It's not.
believing in God.
No, the Arabic term is al-mutakin, and it goes beyond
Okay.
simple belief.
Okay.
It's a state of awareness,
Okay.
a conscious effort to live according to God's will,
Uh-huh.
even when no one's watching.
So it's not just saying you believe,
Wow.
but, like, showing that in your actions and your choices.
Precisely.
Every day.
Every day. And this concept of being God-conscious, it ties directly into the idea
Yeah.
that guidance isn't passive.
Okay.
It's something that you actively seek.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice to align yourself with a higher purpose.
You can't just passively absorb wisdom.
That's right.
You have to be engaged and receptive.
You do?
So that leads us to verses 3 and 4,
Okay.
where it outlines 4 qualities of the righteous.
Right.
And it's interesting that it starts with belief in the unseen.
Yes.
Why is that first?
I think it speaks to the very foundation of faith,
Okay.
trusting in God's promises even when the path ahead is unclear.
Like when you have to take that leap of faith,
Exactly.
even when you don't know what's going to happen.
That's belief in the unseen in
You
action.
trust the process, even when it's uncertain.
Right.
But that can be really hard.
It can.
How do we cultivate that?
That's where the second quality comes in.
Okay.
Establishing prayer.
Okay.
It's not just a ritual. It's a lifeline, a direct connection
Yeah.
to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a space where you can find solace, seek guidance, and reaffirm your trust,
Yeah.
even amidst the uncertainty.
And I've heard there's a lot of research on the benefits of prayer.
There is.
Like physiologically,
Yes.
studies have shown that it can reduce stress hormones
That's right.
and promote a sense of calm.
It's like a built-in stress reliever
Yeah.
linked to your connection with God. And it
Mhm.
really shows that faith isn't just this abstract concept.
Yeah.
It can have actual effects on our well-being.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about belief in the unseen
Right.
and establishing prayer.
Yes.
2 very powerful, like, pillars of faith.
Yeah.
But in these verses, it also mentions 2 more qualities of the righteous.
Mm-hmm.
Giving from what God has provided.
Right.
And believing in prior scriptures and the hereafter. So let's talk about those.
Okay, so these next 2 qualities really ground our faith in action
Okay.
and a broader perspective,
Okay.
giving from God's provision.
Okay.
It's not just about charity. It's a reminder that everything we have is a gift,
Right.
a trust.
It's like challenging that idea of ownership
Exactly.
and reminding us that ultimately it's all a blessing and something that we
Yeah.
should share and use responsibly,
Right.
which kind of ties back into that
It does.
Al-Mutakin idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from that mindset of scarcity and greed
Mm-hmm.
and embracing generosity
Yeah.
as a way of life.
And thinking about the impact that even small acts of giving can have
It's huge.
in the world.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the belief in prior scriptures and the hereafter.
Right.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
Recognizing the interconnectedness of faith across time.
Yes.
And that our actions have consequences. Not just in this life.
Not just in this life.
But in the next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reminds us that our journey doesn't begin and end with us.
Right.
We're part of a much larger narrative.
Yeah.
A story that transcends generations.
It's a continuing story.
It is.
And that ultimately leads to a reckoning in the hereafter. It adds a layer of accountability to our actions.
Yeah.
Like knowing that everything we do matters.
It does.
Even the
small things.
Small thing. Yeah. So these four qualities, belief in the unseen, establishing prayer, giving from God's provisions, and believing in prior scriptures and the hereafter.
Yes.
They paint a pretty comprehensive picture
They do.
of what it means to live a righteous life.
They're not just a checklist.
Yeah.
They're guideposts.
Okay.
Reminders of the mindset and the actions that bring us closer to God and help us navigate all life's complexities.
Speaking of navigating complexities, the story of Prophet Musa or Moses in Surah Al-Baqarah really stands out to me. It's such a powerful example of faith in action.
It is. Imagine leading your people out of slavery, facing a powerful army, and then coming to the Red Sea. That's a test of faith.
On an epic scale.
On an epic scale.
Yeah.
But Musa remained steadfast, relying on God's guidance.
Even when it didn't make any sense.
Even when logic said otherwise.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the core message.
It is.
Of this surah.
Yeah,
that even when facing like
overwhelming odds,
right? Like impossible situations, that there's solace and strength in surrendering to a higher power.
Absolutely. And it's not just about passively waiting for miracles.
Right.
Musa and his people still had to take action.
Yeah.
They had to move forward with faith, knowing that God would help them.
In ways that they couldn't predict.
Exactly.
So it's trust and action.
It is.
Surrender and resilience.
That's right.
But they also faced internal struggles.
They did.
And doubts along the way, right?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
The surah doesn't shy away from the human element of faith.
Right.
It acknowledges our doubts, our fears, our moments of weakness.
That we all have.
That we all have on our spiritual journeys.
So it's normal
to
question.
It's okay.
To struggle, to not be sure.
As long as we come back to that trust in God.
Exactly. And I think that's where the accountability piece becomes really important because the surah emphasizes that we are responsible for our choices, our actions,
our intentions.
This life and the next. So it's not blind faith. It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs.
Yes.
Knowing that
we'll be held accountable.
We'll be held accountable for them.
It's a motivator to strive for righteousness.
Okay.
Not out of fear of punishment.
Right.
But out of a sincere desire to please God and live a life of purpose.
And that accountability ties back into true success.
Yes.
Offers a completely different perspective on what it means to win at life.
It challenges those societal metrics of wealth, fame, power.
Yeah.
And it's see that true success is being guided by God.
So it's like it's
a perspective shift.
Perspective shift, yeah.
Instead of asking, how do I get more?
Right.
It prompts us to ask, how can I use what I have?
To serve a greater good.
Exactly. And that's a question that can transform not just our individual lives, but the world around us.
So it feels like we've got this amazing roadmap for life.
Right.
But how do we actually, use it?
How do we apply it?
Yeah, how do we apply it?
Well, that's the beauty of the Quran. It's not just like abstract philosophy.
Right.
It gives us practical guidance for daily living.
So what?
Well, remember those four qualities of the righteous.
You mean belief in the unseen, establishing prayer.
Yes.
Giving from God's provisions and believing in prior scriptures and the hereafter.
That's right. Let's see how we can make those part of our lives.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay, let's start with belief in the unseen. It could be something as simple as starting your day with a few verses from the Quran.
Okay.
You know, it's like setting your spiritual compass before all the craziness of the day starts.
Before you check your email.
Exactly.
And your to-do list.
Yeah.
I like that. But what about prayer?
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to just rush through it.
It is.
Especially when you're busy.
Yeah, you've hit a very common struggle.
Yeah.
Sometimes just a small change in perspective can make a big difference.
Okay.
So maybe try praying in a different room or focusing on a particular verse that speaks to you.
Okay.
Or really think about the meaning of the words.
So just being present.
Yes, be present.
Yeah, not just going through the motions.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that discreet charity is really important in Islam.
It is.
So how can we
incorporate that?
Yeah, incorporate that.
Well, it doesn't have to be this big grand gesture.
Right.
It's the small, consistent acts of generosity that count.
Okay.
So maybe it's buying a meal for someone in need.
Okay.
Or donating to a cause you support. Or even just helping someone who's struggling.
And those small acts.
They can have a huge impact.
Yeah, like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
And it reminds us that giving isn't just about money.
It's not.
It's about time and effort.
And compassion.
And compassion, yeah.
Yeah.
So what about remembering the hereafter?
Right.
Because it can feel kind of daunting. Yeah.
Well, you can just take a few minutes every day for quiet reflection.
Okay.
Pause, breathe, and think about your purpose.
Okay.
What impact do you want to leave on the world? What kind of legacy are you building?
So just taking a moment to kind of hit the pause button
exactly.
on life and think about the bigger picture.
Yes, the bigger picture.
Yeah, I like that.
So all of these small actions, they might seem small,
right,
but they can really have a big impact.
On how we view our faith and how we feel connected to it.
They can.
Yeah.
It's about making these principles part of our lives.
Right, not just
concepts.
Yeah.
Or a way of life.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something you said earlier.
Okay.
About how these 5 verses are like a roadmap for the whole Quran.
They are.
So as we keep reading the rest of this chapter and beyond, what should we be looking for?
Look for the recurring themes
and
how they develop and grow. You'll see echoes of these verses as the concepts of faith, action, and accountability are explored further.
So we're building on this foundation.
We are.
And seeing how these ideas evolve and connect with each other.
A journey.
A journey of discovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And remember that the Quran is meant to be a living guide for us. Not some old book on a shelf.
Right.
It's a text that speaks to us in new ways.
As we grow.
And
our understanding changes.
Exactly.
It's pretty inspiring to think that we can always find new meaning.
We can.
In these verses.
We can.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has given me a totally new understanding of these verses.
I'm glad.
So thank you for sharing your insights with me.
You're welcome.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank
you.
For
this exploration of Surah Al-Baqarah. May we all continue to find guidance and inspiration